Hello and welcome once again to one more Green Live. This week is the episode 6, and what we have ahead of us is the discrete manufacturing, how we drive sustainability in that industry. And as usual, I have with me Carlos Diaz, Adriana Urso, and Estamatia Betsy. Hello and welcome, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Hello.
Wonderful. So the first topic of the day, we'll start with Stamatia, where we're going to deep dive on sustainability in discrete manufacturing. Stamatia, can you share with us what you have gathered as information about that?
Of course. So actually, it's important to mention what industries are inside the district manufacturing. So we are talking about aerospace and defense, automotive, high technology as Apple and Microsoft, and industrial machinery. All these companies are creating small parts like laptop, let's say, but also bigger products as cars or aeroplanes. But regardless the size of the products, the industry what is the industry needs? A movement of all these thousands of products and parts from one location to another. And a failure of any of these assets actually can create major consequences. For example, dissatisfaction of the customer if the laptop does not work, or even a car accident. So in that specific industry, the supply chain management, the quality of the products, and the on-time delivery are really, really important. When we're talking about sustainability for the manufacturing industry, we are referring not only to the production of those products, but also to the whole value chain, from the decision of what will be the raw material that will be used, to the production, to the energy use, to the transportation, to the reuse, and to the recycling. And what is important for the companies is actually to track those emissions, to track their CO2 footprints. According to statistics, the 44% of the world's energy consumption comes from the manufacturing industry, and that 20% of the global emissions are responsible and comes from the 24 of the global emissions comes also from the manufacturing industry. So it's really important. Yes.
Yeah, to that point, so our listeners can understand the problem and put it in context. Just let me give you a couple of examples of the mathematics of manufacturing. Okay, so when you have a laptop in front of you, the amount of waste generated to produce that laptop is 4,000 times its weight. So you have a laptop in front of you, or you order a laptop, and you know that 4,000 times its weight has been the waste generated in producing that. That's specifically for laptops, but in general, for everything that is manufactured, we have an average of 32, the 1 to 32 ratio. So 1 kilo of final products equals to 32 kilos of waste produced in the manufacturing process. Just to put in context what we are talking about here. So we are going to talk about technologies for sustainable manufacturing, but we have to understand that the most sustainable product ever is the product that is not produced. Go ahead, Sabatia.
Thank you, Carlos. Really interesting. So it is really important for the companies to track their CO2 footprints, and what we cannot track, we cannot measure. So I would like to ask Adriana to tell us some more things about that.
Yes, thank you, Stamatia. So, as you said, for the manufacturing industry, it's not only about the product, it's about the entire value chain. So, let's make an easy example. Carlos talked about laptop, but let's think also about a car. I think everyone can relate to that. It's not only about the car itself, but it's also about the raw materials that we use to produce that. It's about the whole production part. How did we use the raw material? What's the labor that we put in it? What's the energy that we use to get that car? what's the transport that we use in order to to let the car arrive to the final consumer in the end. So these are all things that a discrete manufacturing company need to understand, need to measure, and to optimize, because something that we cannot measure, we cannot improve. Yeah, or like Carlos says all the time, we cannot start a diet if we don't know how much we weigh. So in order to be more sustainable, first of all, we need to understand what's our weight, what's our carbon footprint in these terms. And this is a challenge, of course, because we have lots of processes in discrete manufacturing, lots of factors to take into account, and we are helping our customers here in order to measure this. And Pedro, can you please share the slide with Climate 21, which is our program for helping companies to measure CO2 footprint. So basically what we are doing is to embed sustainability as a new dimension of success into all our solutions. This could be transactional applications, but also analytical. So as we have cost in all the applications, we will also have carbon footprint and data related to sustainability. And we will embed this into all four main processes: design to operate, lead to cash, source to pay, and record to report. And first of all, we will assess this information. So we will gather all the carbon emissions, all the GHG emissions. So it's not only about carbon; it's about greenhouse gas emissions in general. We will gather this from different parts like raw materials, transport, energy, the production itself, and we will give that calculation back to the user in order to understand what's the footprint, evaluate it, and compare it against benchmarks, and also understand how we can improve that. Yeah. And this improvement can also mean, a change in the way we produce, maybe produce it in certain plants, use alternative types of energy.
Can I
Even, yes,
suggest
please.
something? Imagine if this information of how much waste is generated is on the label of the product. Imagine it if every time you buy a product, that information is included in the description of the product. This weighs 1 kilo, and we used 4,000 kilos of materials to make it, or 3,000 kilos of water, liters of water. So that could be a part of the information that could reach out to the final consumer that today we don't know a word about that. So imagine if you're a corporation that produces stuff, the value that has to your customer, and the competitive value if that arrives to your customer and you're the first one to deliver this information. But let's not forget something, and this is a statistics from North America. 6 months after we buy stuff, we are not using it in 99% of the cases. So only 1% of what we buy, we continue using it 6 months after purchasing it. So it's
Carlos,
not just about using less stuff. It's about making sure that we use what we buy.
I
Yeah,
have a thought around what you just said right now. It reminds me cigarettes, right? Where you have this package of cigarette that comes with all those harm for the human body and
correct.
everything else. Is that more or less what you're saying? When we have a product, it has to be regulated in a way that is transparent about the impact to the environment. This is a very big thought.
This is a very good angle, Pedro, because the tobacco industry was forced to do that. What I'm suggesting here is that if you want to build a competitive advantage, you're not going to be forced to provide that information to your customer. Because you provide that information to your customer, you're going to reach out to a whole new set of customers that you never reached out to. So you're not forced to do it. You're willing to do it, and you're willing to be transparent, and you're willing to connect to the largest interest group and the fastest interest group in the history of humankind, which is the people that are interested in keeping this planet safe and healthy.
But then, do we have any measure to actually bring that information to the manufacturers, in the sense that they understand there is really a demand if they do such initiative? What are the
That is,
metrics we can prove it?
yeah, that is why it is so important what Adriana is stating. You cannot improve what you cannot measure. You cannot communicate what you cannot measure. You cannot tell the customer, hey, Mr. Customer, here's the water that I use, here's the waste that I produce, here's the energy that I consumed, if you don't know. So the first step is getting to know that. And sorry, then we interrupted you when you were trying to explain that. But let's look at that from that angle. I mean, it is true that we have this neophilia, this need to buy new stuff, but we are not using that stuff after 6 months. So what if we connect with consumers in a completely different way to make sure that people understand what is the impact of what they're buying, they value what they're buying, and they keep using what they're valuing, while we establish that direct connection with the consumer that no one else is establishing.
Very good point, Carlos. You're really right. So whenever we could buy something, we could also see not only the price, but also what's the carbon footprint of that product. It could, ring a bell and try to understand what are we actually doing to the planet. Yeah, good point. I also want to show you a glimpse of what we are working on. So this is a vision demo. This is the vision that we are working on right now with the program Climate 21. Thank you. Can you please click again, Pedro, because that's a video. We can see here how we can, what's the dashboard that we can share with our customers. And we have the CEO view in the beginning, but also the customer view. So let's see, we are selling polymers here, and we have this customer, which is called Polypack. And we can see what's the carbon footprint of different different things, but we're looking at demogram currently, which is one that is emitting a lot of carbon. And our customer Polypack is actually asking us to reduce that because they need to reduce their carbon footprint. But I can see also here not only the carbon footprint, but also the cost of goods sold, what is the price, what is the margin that I have, where do I produce this? These are also very important. What's the revenue that it brings me? So I wonder myself how I can improve this. So I want to do a simulation and understand what would mean to go to 1.6 tons of carbon footprint instead of 2.6. So I can see here that my margin will become negative because the cost would become much higher. And I need to produce everything in Germany. So I cannot mix it also with the US and with France, but I need to produce everything in Germany. So this could be an issue. So I need to understand if this is feasible, first of all. So I need to check my simulation against my S4HANA ERP system to understand if this is feasible, if I can actually produce everything in Germany with this cost. But also I need to understand what's the new price, because my margin now I can see that is negative. So if we move forward, I can simulate and check for the feasibility, and I can see that S4HANA will give me, it's just moving forward, yeah, with the video. I can see that the available to promise check and the material requirement planning check are okay. So I can, if this is feasible, I can do it. And I also get a new price recommendation, which is 3,300 euros, much a bit higher than the one that I had previously. But if I need to keep my margin and my competitiveness, I need to go to that price. And I also need to check back, of course, with my customer and ask if they can really take that price. Okay, I could make this product more sustainable, but it comes with a higher price. And you could ask yourself why this comes with a higher price, why it costs maybe more to produce it in Germany. Is it maybe because I use renewable energy? I use it, or I use something which is more expensive, because actually renewable energy, as we have seen, it can also cost less. But maybe there are some components there in being sustainable that makes me have a larger cost. And I need to put that in the price in order to keep my competitiveness. And I think this is also a huge topic, because if we think about the consumer, we need to understand, okay, this has an impact in terms of carbon footprint, but are you really wishing to pay, let's say, a little more in order to be more sustainable? This is something that us as consumers need to really think about, and really need to be convinced about. What is your vision about that, Carlos, Pedro? What do you
Well,
think?
yeah, Pedro.
For me, it's quite clear, right? There is a green premium, and very recently, Bill Gates released a book with the green premium calculation as a tool. And basically, what it says is that, yeah, it might be more expensive for you to find a more sustainable solution for something that you're looking at. But actually, with innovation and things that we're talking here, that is sustainable technology, you can eventually reduce the cost of that green premium. And that's the journey that I see we are all in right now. Carlos.
Yeah, just continue with the same mathematics. Imagine you're gonna end up using 1% of you buy of what you buy 6%, 6 months later. Okay, 1%, and then it you continue with the mathematics, and you know that for every 1 kilo of or what you are enjoying 6 months later, you needed 4,000 kilos to produce it. So it means that the happiness index of 1 kilogram of any material that you use, you're getting 6 months later 0.00025 happiness. So what I mean is, it doesn't matter. We can buy many more green products if we stop buying so much stuff that we don't use. It's not about being able to buy something greener or not greener. It's making sure that we enjoy and we really use what we buy. That's my thought.
Mhm. Or if we already bought it, I think what we can do is also to maybe resell it as a used stuff. We just sold our coffee machine here in the house because we were never using it. So yeah, that can
Yeah.
also be an option. So
That's that, that, that's another point. Look, we are receiving 3,000 per every person is receiving 3,000 ADs per day. So the inclination for consumption is massive. We have been educated in this consumption, a frantic consumption all our lives. But some brands are realizing that enough is enough. That we have to migrate from a me brand to a we brand, and they establish those bartering mechanisms, those sharing mechanisms, that reutilization. So all those techniques that make sure that you are not just buying something for yourself, you're buying something because you are part of a community. And that's another dimension that is essential for manufacturing, because manufacturing transformation is just personal transformation. Manufacturers will manufacture what you need when you need it. Look what we do, for example, how SAP works with Harley Davidson. When you are just ordering your motorbike, you can look inside the production process. You can look how it's been built. You can choose the color. You can put your name on it. You can customize it. You are part of the experience. And then you make sure that that motorbike has a second life and extends its lifespan. So there are so many ways in which manufacturing can be entrenched with how people feel. That's the future from my point of view.
Carlos, I want to challenge a bit this thinking process in terms of the time frame and the how pragmatic it is for the needed reduction of emissions to come out of this huge transformation of people's behavior, right? I
Yeah,
guess companies, they have a intrinsic pressure for growth, right? That's what the shareholders are expecting, even though we are in the era of the triple bottom line. Not only shareholders are important, and we spoke about that in our last conversation. However, we have, let's say, 10 to 30 years to actually drastically change everything in order for us to get to the level of
absolutely
emissions that
right.
is required to
Yeah.
save the planet. So, is that something really feasible?
Not only feasible, let me give you a couple of numbers. First, if 1/5 of what you spend in your house, just 20%, okay, you switch from purchasing new stuff to rent, we would be able to cut 2% global emissions. Just switching 20% of what you buy from purchasing stuff to renting stuff. Imagine if we add that 2% to whatever you can recycle, whatever you can barter wherever you can recover. That adds up. And just for everybody to have in mind, what we need is an around 10% reduction in GHG emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions every year. Only with that change, we would have done 2%. So yes, this has a big effect on what we want to achieve. It's not something minor, because as you heard from Stamatia, manufacturing stuff produces basically 1/4 of the overall emissions in our planet.
Wow, the numbers really speak about it. And I think we talked about how we can measure, but something very important in manufacturing is also moving from linear economy to a circular economy. And we already talked a little bit about it. And I know Stamatia has also some other details on this.
Yes, actually, we already talked more in the consumers part, but what is the circular economy for the manufacturers? Where in circular economy, everything has a value and nothing is wasted. And there are 5 things that a company can do. The first is responsible design. So the design of the products should be done in such a way that can be reused and can be recycled. So this is the first thing. The second is responsible sources. So the materials that the manufacturer should use should be recycled materials. So the manufacturers should identify the correct sources of recycled materials. The third thing is the responsible production. So the products should be in use at the highest value by using real-time technologies. The fourth is the responsible consumptions. The consumers nowadays want to know from where the raw materials comes from. And for that reason, the manufacturers should insert that information, should inform people from where the raw materials comes from. And the last one is about the recyclers. The recyclers need high quality data on sources of recyclable materials so as to support their investments. So all these things, the design, the consumption, the production, all these things are really important, as well as the traceability and the transparency of the raw materials. And there are a lot of solutions there where we can identify from where the raw materials come from. And maybe, I don't know, Adriana would have some more to say about that.
Yes, thank you, Stamatia. I think one of the issues with all this that you mentioned, it's also the fact that sometimes with the end product, we have difficulties to say what is made of. I mean, think about a car. It has lots of components, which can be plastic, metal, different kinds of metal, and so on, liquids, whatever. But it's difficult to understand at the end of life, how can we disassemble that? How what's the real parts, what the real raw materials that went into that, and how can we recycle afterwards?
And
Pedro,
that's
can you please?
and that's before you go to that point, that's why it's so important in this collaborative consumption, collaborative economy, that we talk about, for example, carpooling or track pooling or resource pooling. Every time you talk about pooling, you talk about creating a community, and you talk about centralizing the service, the repairs, and the end of life of that car. So you don't have to do it, but someone that knows how to recycle that and someone that knows how to handle that is going to do it for all of the players in the equation. So the extra benefits of this circular economy are not only the utilization of the asset, the reduction in production of the assets, the reduction of distribution of the assets, it's also the maintenance and the end of life. Just to give you an idea, only 20% of the products are two-way products. So 80% is one-way product. So means that once the producer of that product hands it over to you, they forget about it. It's one-way product. Okay, with this collaborative consumption, all the products that are part of these platforms are two-way products.
Awesome, great example on that as well. So with raw materials, it's very important to understand where are they ending, and so this means that the end product we have in front of us, we will be able to understand what's really inside it, because usually raw materials, and I have a slide on that, Pedro, if you can share it, please. They get aggregated. Yes, we have different kinds of raw materials which are usually traded on a bulk basis. It's not about batches. It's just bulk stuff that we have hard time to track, and then they are mixed, yeah, which is called commingling. Then they get into refining and production, and then they get into different materials. You can see it can be liquids, it can be clothes, it can be cars, washing machines, or whatever. And at the end of it, we don't really know what that final product is made of. But what if we could do that, and if we could really understand what's the percentage of each raw material in the end product, it would really improve the supply chain transparency, which is really poor, and the end consumer would have also a great benefit from that. But not only, it would also help a lot at the end of life of the product to recycle it. So we design already the product in such a way that at the end of its life, it would be easier to recycle or reuse or whatever. So very important topic also this year. I know we talked also about food in the past and how transparency for food is important, but in also in discrete manufacturing, this is a very important topic.
Another important topic actually is how to handle the wastes in a different way. We have seen in the past that manufacturing is using a subtractive manufacturing. And now what is demanding for that sector is using the additive manufacturing. And what it is, actually, let's explain what each one is. Additive manufacturing, actually, it is the 3D printing. So it builds objects by adding material layer by layer. While the subtractive manufacturing is you create, you use a big part and you create smaller parts from a big part, and that big part of material. And from that, a lot of wastes are extracted. So the use of 3D printing is really, really important. So as because it grows the material from bottom up, and it also, you use only the materials that are important for that.
And that a good parallel for that, additive manufacturing creates no waste. You only use the materials that are gonna be part of the final product. But there's also a good analogy with food. We have slow food and we have fast food, and more and more of us consume fast food all the time. Same thing goes with consumption. There is a slow consumption and there is fast consumption, and we have this Amazon Prime effect. You could not believe what is the percentage of people in different countries that are subscribed to Amazon Prime. I'm not going to give figures because I don't think they are very inspiring, but just let me give you an example. If every person in the planet consumes like an American person, we would need 5 planets. This is completely unsustainable. This has a lot to do with manufacturing, and this has to do a lot with our excessive impulse to buy so much so fast with no pain. Two things here. Why do we do this? First is because we feel the immediate gain, but we don't feel the losses. We don't see how we are utilizing the materials. We don't see how water sources are draining. We don't see that. We just see what arrives sometimes the same day to our house. So the gain is immediate, and the loss we don't see it. That's one thing. And the other thing is because we used to have the payment So you used to pay with your money, and then with your credit card, and now it's seamless. You already provided your credit card information many months or years ago. You don't even have to do it every time you purchase. So not only you feel an immediate gain, but you don't feel any pain because there's no payment. So all that is making a lot of manufacturing, creating more and more stuff that is, and you cannot differentiate from the manufacturer next door. And I think one of the secret sauces for next generation manufacturers is to completely avoid that and to establish a relationship with a consumer that is a more mature relationship, that is a relationship where you not just sell something and disappear, but you sell something and continue there together with your customer. You're putting together a community, and that's what is gonna drastically transform the manufacturing, the supply chain, the logistics, the transportation, and so many different parts of the supply chain of the manufacturing industry.
Great point here, Carlos. I think we work a lot, to make things easier for the consumer, seamless. We use now IoT, machine learning, blockchain, whatever, in order to make it easier for the consumer. So to buy things, to have a great experience. But yeah, like you said, sometimes that fact that you don't feel the pain of the payment, maybe creates this issue. So if you could see the carbon footprint, then maybe it could solve this issue.
Yeah, and all those technologies that you mentioned, for example, manufacturing 4.0, which is very based on Internet of Things, can enable this new economy. Just imagine for a second that when things are connected, and that's the Internet of Things, just connecting things to the internet, you get to know when they're available for sharing. So we have heard 1,000 times about the drilling machine. What you need are the holes, not the drill machine. About a car. So when things are connected, when manufacturers produce things that can be connected seamlessly, then it is much easier for all of us to create those collaborative consumption, because things are connected and we know where they are, when they are, and we know where we can utilize them. So all this new economy is enabled by intelligent enterprises that are in the manufacturing space, but at the same time understand what is the consumer demanding.
Mm-hmm. And I guess this brings us also to the Industry 4.0 topic. Yes, Tamatia, please.
Tamatia.
No, it brings us to the industry, and I would like to ask Carlos. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So I would like to ask Carlos, because he mentioned about the connection of the products, how the products can be connected, and what will be, what the manufacturers can do so as to connect the products.
Well, there are many ways to connect a product, and different technologies, from RFIDs to beacons to mesh beacons to, I mean, you name it. At the end of the day, what we want to do is create those digital twins of whatever you produce. So those digital twins are available for anyone in the collaborative consumption movement or in any platform. The minute you can take for example, your carpooling in the city that you live. Samatia, you were mentioning the other day that in Athens you don't see those many shared cars, but Adriana in Milan or myself in Madrid, the street is just full of those cars. And I know if they are available or not because they are connected. And so the manufacturing process of that car enables a new way of consumption. And because we can share them and because we can create carpooling, then someone in a centralized fashion can maintain them and can extend their lifespan or resell them as Adriana was selling. So this new way of manufacturing, thinking about new ways of consumption, is really transforming the way we act in everyday life. Just the other day, I was talking to a person that was telling me, okay, do I need to continue buying to go greener? I have to buy a green car. I have to buy solar panels. I have to buy. Do I have to buy to go greener? No, you don't have to buy anything to go greener. In fact, you have to stop buying to go greener. If you have a car, keep your car and use it 20 more years. Even if it's a high emission vehicle, it will be much better than switching to a brand new car that you own. But what is definitely greener is to use these kind of communities that have been enabled by smart manufacturers.
And that's also an important topic. Okay, now we have seen Stamatia twice for a second. We have two Stamatias. Back to
I
Magda.
lost connection. I lost connection.
All right. So can we deep dive on Industry 4.0? Would that really help? We're talking about the Internet of Things as one of the elements of connecting products, which, by the way, would add another layer of manufacturing, which would be equipment that I'm not sure how much they are good for the environment. We can talk about that as well. But in the sense of, connecting, but what else in the Industry 4.0 we can leverage to achieve the goals of reducing emissions and operating greener?
Well, one other topic, and we can talk about that, is the logistics. Think about all those trucks that they go full on the road and they come empty. That is what we call at SAP the Logistics Business Network, and we have partnered with Project 44 to make sure that those trucks go full and come back full. And the same way we were talking about carpooling, we're now talking about truck pooling or any resource pooling, as I was mentioning a few minutes ago. So logistics, it's transportation, it's a very a key component of logistics to also take the cost down of manufacturers. So when we make sure that those trucks go full and come back full, we're not only being more sustainable, but also being more cost effective. Every kilometer that truck is making it doing something meaningful and making sure that investment is put to well use. And this is something that we have to change in our minds sometimes. And you mentioned that, Pedro, is the green, how did you call it? The green
Premium.
The green premium. Thank you. So we have this stack in our brains. If it's green, it has to be more expensive. Look, if it's green and it's dumb, it has to be more expensive. If it's green and it is intelligent, it has to be less expensive. And this is a perfect example. If that truck goes full and comes back full, it's going to be greener and it's going to be less expensive. And this is the future. Again, a leap step for smart manufacturers is look for green opportunities to make your products more appealing, to make your products less expensive. That's the right approach.
Understand. And I also think that's part of the eco efficiency that would drive the operations to be greener in the business process itself. So you embed to your business process those practices that makes it greener. One more element that I would like to explore, maybe Adriana, you can address that for us, is traceability. Is traceability part of Industry 4.0, and what would that be the case for solutions of companies that are trying to embed traceability to their products and services?
Yeah, so yeah, actually, I talked a little bit about traceability already in the raw materials part, and I always love this subject in whatever it comes in food, in fashion, or whatever. We really need to know, we really need to be able to track back to the origin in order to understand if this was ethical source, about the labor conditions and all these things. But like I said, also about the materials that really are in the final product that we have in front of us in the case of discrete manufacturing. And here we actually have a solution which is actually a startup that was created inside SAP, which is called Green Token, which helps us to trace raw material sustainable from a sustainable point of view. Yeah, so we have these tokens, green tokens, that you can share along the supply chain in a way that at the end of the value chain, you know the product, what kind of green token has inside it, what's the carbon footprint of it, and what are really the raw materials that are part of that final product.
Yeah,
And yes.
in that regard, I think that green token is a great example for traceability. But in general, our customers, all of them, and many of them that are using Ariba, the business-to-business network, are telling us, I want to really trace how sustainable is this product. We did a big alliance with EcoVadis, and all the Ariba users can just download an API, and that API will help them with all the traceability, all the sustainability components of anything that they buy in this business network, by the way, the largest in the world. So now we have a great way to gather also scope 3 emissions that are upstream emissions. So the products and the raw materials that you buy for whatever manufacturing purposes that you have, you just can use Ariba to buy all those products, download the API, and you will have all the scope 3 emissions, all the sustainability indexes, in general, the SDG information that you need. So you have on one hand green token. If you're talking about, as Adriana was mentioning, if you're talking about traceability of products that are combined in origin, or you have EcoVadis if you are an Ariba user for any materials that you want and for any scope 3 scenarios that you want to work on.
Fantastic. So, guys, we are really coming close to the top of the hour for the session today. One of the things that many people came ask to me is about more information, how they can learn more. Of course, we have our masterclass, and we will end with the video of our masterclass. But here I have a book. And Carlos, I know you love books as well. You probably want to share some of them. Reimagine Capitalism in a World on Fire. This is one thing that I'm now having in my arsenal of learning, and that I recommend for all of you. Rebecca Henderson is a writer of this book, and it comes with very interesting stories about not only creating value for shareholders, but actually looking at your stakeholders in a more holistic way. Carlos, you've got something for us.
Of course, book to book. Okay, so this is 6 years old, but I think it's good to, when the dust settles, and not only as the recommended books that are the latest and the greatest. These are some of the greatest, but not the latest. 6 years old, a lot of inspiration of some of the topics that we have discussed today.
Well, I've got that one as well. I loved it. It's a really good topic.
I didn't know
We
that.
had a lot of discussions on that in the past, if you remember, but it's really great. So, going back to all of us now, it's been really a journey. This is the episode 6, and we are growing so much in knowledge and awareness. And there is one thing I would like us to kind of reflect for a second. The more I learn about sustainability and the impact of this issue for the planet, the more worried I get. Right. So knowledge here is becoming a curse, because everywhere I go now, I look at that as, if it's a solution, how much of the problem this is solving, right? You're talking about 51 billion of carbon emission every year. So everything we talk about, we'll have to reduce that up to some point to zero. So how are you guys feeling in that journey so far?
A
Yes,
bit of pressure, maybe.
I think we discussed this stubborn optimism. I mean, you know the facts, you know the challenges, but you are stubborn. You want to make things happen. You have faith. You have hope, and you believe in the commons. You believe in more people understanding, more people adhering to a new way of consuming. Let me tell you one thing. I think when we talk about manufacturing transformation, we talk about personal transformation. I said that, but what does it mean? It means that you have to answer to some critical questions, which is, what else can I give away? How can I have more space for people and less space for staff? How can I be part of a community? If you think about the UK, for example, only 10% of the people know their neighbors. Is that making me happy? Or is one more product that I buy in Amazon Prime making me happy? Those are the essential questions. And if we think about it, and if when we talk about technology, we understand how technology can enable that transformation of every human being, then we are stubborn and we're optimists.
Wonderful. What about, ladies, for the business leaders out there, right? So I think Carlos has made the point for us individually to really, change certain areas of our lives. But I think our community here are a community of leaders that are making decisions in their companies about product, services, and how things operate. So what would be your advice for the business leaders out there, Adriana and Samatia?
Well, first of all, we always talk about it. There are lots of regulations coming, and surely some of us, some of the companies will be mainly obliged, to become more sustainable, which helps, of course. But it's also about the leaders to think, to be ahead, like always. Be ahead, be more intelligent, like also Carlos was saying. Create that a competitive, use that as a competitive advantage. Engage your consumers, become more competitive, create a community, take that as an advantage, not that something that you really need to apply a regulation or something because you're just obliged. Transform it in a competitive advantage.
Fantastic. Samatia.
And from my side, I would say that every company should create a sustainable strategy and not create separate sustainability, let's say, strategy, but incorporate sustainability into the whole, into their strategies in the way they operate. And this is a really, really important thing to see sustainability in everything that a company is running.
Fantastic. Carlos, you have any last comment?
No, I think Adriana and Samatia did it beautifully. Nothing else.
Well, wonderful. So look, from making your strategy sustainable all the way as a business leader for you to make decisions that drive sustainability in real life, and for us individually to change in order to be prepared for the new world that require more action. We have been through a journey so far. So I really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. Next week, we will have episode 7. And as usual, I have a question for all of you. What's coming next week?
Great topic. And during our discussion, I was actually thinking about it.
Yes. Why don't we take something? Okay. Why don't we take something totally different in an industry that has to do with entertainment, with sports, and something that we all need, and especially after the COVID. That
let's go for it.
Sustainability in the sports, then.
And entertainment, everything that
awesome.
might.
I love that. Well, thank you very much.
I had a more boring one, sustainable finance.
Forget about that.
Totally different.
We'll certainly talk about that in future episodes as well. And for now, I really want to thank you all. Thank you for your time. I think many people have been reaching out, appreciating what you're doing here, sharing your knowledge, what you're learning. And this journey of sharing, I think, is the first thing to really drive action. And for those of you listening to all of us here, you can reach out to us if you need help. We are here to serve and to support not only SAP customers, but anybody that wants to adopt sustainability and make a difference in this decade of action. With that, I leave you and I see you next week.
We need to make it happen. We have to be pragmatic.
how we take care of the people, how we take care of the prosperity, and how we take care of our planet.
We challenge what is and we inspire what could be.
To a real prosumer-centric model.
We have to get involved. You have to get involved.
Bartering and reusing and recycling is a whole new experience.
It is not just about the scale and the financials and the feasibility.
How can we bring together partners, whether they're in governments, whether they're local institutions?
Delightful madness. Also, we would like to do it in a sustainable way.
Talk is really cheap and action is the new currency.
So we do need many more companies to set more ambitious goals, as Vivek was also talking about.
At the end of the day, if you can mobilize your people, if you can create the right awareness, then you start to make an impact.
Sustainable tech is within reach. You have the abilities and the capabilities to make it work.
We are now in the decade of actions,
such that every single product becomes an asset to the brands.
It's something that requires a process, a vision, and then a cycle to put this in place.
You can't have a circular economy unless you have a connected economy.
It's a whole new way of looking at things.
It's really a shift from setting goals according to what is possible to setting goals instead according to what is really necessary.
And that the new decade of action that starts today.
So we need massive actions now, and companies need to be a lead in the conversation.